How are you modifying your workouts now that you're pregnant? I'm not. What is up? Welcome back to the pregnancy chat. We did a Q&A not too long ago talking about fertility, nausea, recapping my first trimester experience. I think that was also the YouTube video where I made my formal pregnancy announcement. But flash forward to now, we are entering the third trimester, which is crazy to say, crazy to think that there's going to be a whole new human being in existence in just the next few months. I mean, definitely already exists. I've been getting a lot of kicks, but since that first Q&A, you have had a lot of questions about fitness specifically. So I just wanted to take this time to sit down, make a whole video focused on pregnancy fitness, my fitness journey throughout this pregnancy so far, what has been different about my first versus my second pregnancy, do some myth busting, talk about how the science has changed even in just the last couple years. We're going to talk about a bit of everything. Before we do though, a message from our sponsor. If there's one thing guaranteed with pregnancy, it is that you are gonna be sweating and you are gonna have body odor, whether that is due to increased blood flow, higher metabolic rate, hormonal fluctuations. Thankfully, today's video is sponsored by Lumi, which if you haven't heard, it's a whole body deodorant invented by OBGYN Shannon Klingman that's clinically proven to block body odor all day and continues controlling BO for 72 hours. You can use this on your pits, privates, and beyond. Lumi has a variety of products depending what you like. They've got different formats. I got the stick deodorant cream, deodorant wipes, as well as body wash. I have been loving the deodorant stick in Vanilla Bliss scent. It is a smooth, solid stick that will not stain your clothes or show up on skin. But like I said, they have options and something for everyone. So if you want to check out Lumi for yourself, their starter pack bundle is a great place to start. It includes a full-size stick deodorant, a cream deodorant tube or spray deodorant, 2 free products like the wipes or mini body wash, plus free US shipping. And just for our community, Lumi is offering an extra $5 off when you click the link in the description box down below and enter code Pollock at checkout. That is a savings of over 40% off. First up, how are you modifying your workouts now that you're pregnant? I'm not. If you've seen the videos I've posted to Instagram where I'm training very intensely with the belly, I'm doing all the things. They're very impressive. When I edit them, I find them very motivating for my low energy days. But I always try to make the disclaimer that was not at all the reality through first trimester. My whole pregnancy fitness journey this time through has a massive asterisk when it comes to those first, whatever it is, like 14, 15, maybe 16 weeks, because my experience has been really different this time. And unfortunately, I did have very intense nausea pretty much all day, did not stop. There was no relief. There was no rhyme or reason to it. And so my fitness routine became non-existent. Now, my job is as a trainer in the ANDA app. So as part of doing my job that I have to do because I am an adult, I did instruct usually a couple workouts per week for the app. But when I say that was my only movement, outside of that, I was in bed. That is what I mean. We talk more about just the degree of, or that, I don't even know the right word, the severity of, the intensity of the first trimester experience in that last Q&A. So if you're going through it, it's definitely worth a watch. If you had a different experience, it might also be worth watching just so you can understand and maybe have empathy for other pregnant women. But with the massive disclaimer that my first trimester was a write-off, I would say that I've not made really any modifications to my fitness routine outside of that. Of course, because I was not the most active for those first 14 to 16 weeks, I do feel like I went through a bit of a period of regaining fitness where I just felt like my muscles were a little bit weaker, my endurance wasn't quite as good. But recently, I actually feel very normal. I guess everything is relative, but I feel similar, I think, to how I felt pre-pregnancy. Of course, I've got the belly and it does weigh on me throughout the day, but I feel great. And so I have been training as I normally would, which I think segues into our next question of which exercises should not be done when pregnant. Essentially, there are very few exercises that absolutely have to be avoided during pregnancy if you're having a healthy pregnancy, if you don't have any other risk factors or specific contraindications to that exercise. There's actually a post I saw from one of my favorite PTs that I follow. She is a PT who also either recently completed or is working through her PhD. She's a mom. She posts such helpful resources. I will put her handle somewhere on screen. But the post says old information is now misinformation, and it's a big problem. And as you swipe through, she continues to explain that there is a 17-year knowledge translation gap between what is happening in research versus clinical practice. So what that means is that between when a study is done versus when it is communicated to the public from their care providers, so whether that is a PT, an OBGYN, a midwife, a nurse, whoever you're seeing, they might be working off of 17-year-old recommendations, right? Which if you think about just all that has changed, I mean, even in your own life in 17 years, but the technological advances we've made, so much has happened. And in recent years, I feel like there's been even more funding for research in women's health and more interest in it. We've been asking better questions. So much has changed in that time. But I think this can help explain why you see such inconsistent advice around exercise coming from different care providers during pregnancy. If you talk to your OB and ask them, hey, what can I do by way of exercise? You might get a different answer as compared to if you asked a pelvic PT, even as compared to if you asked a different OB or a different pelvic PT, because there is this huge gap in information translation and people keeping up to date with where the research is at and how we can apply it to pregnant women. What we know is that you do not want direct impact to your belly. So, for example, movements that I would say are not off limits. Ultimately, it's up to your comfort level and risk tolerance. But movements that I personally would not be doing are combat sports where you may be punched or kicked in the stomach. Things where you're likely to fall, maybe horseback riding. But again, like if you're an experienced horseback rider, maybe you feel very comfortable on the horse. I still ride my bike during pregnancy, but if there's something that you think you might fall off of, dirt biking, maybe not. But again, that's a you decision, right? I think you kind of get where I'm going based on the most up-to-date and high-quality literature that we have right now. Outside of direct impact, for the most part, you're looking at the same safety considerations as you would be outside of pregnancy. So making sure that you're not overdoing it with intensity, you're not overdoing it with impact. And even that is relative based on your experience and your starting fitness level. So it comes down to making a risk assessment, figuring out what your tolerance is. But that is why I would be skeptical of people making blanket statements about you absolutely cannot lift weights over a certain amount or you can't have your heart rate go above a certain threshold. Easy one. How many times a week do you train? I mean muscle training. So again, with the disclaimer that this was not my routine at all through first trimester, and I took a few weeks, I don't know how many weeks after first trimester to build up to this routine. But recently, how things have looked for me are I aim for about 30 to 60 minutes of walking daily. I don't aim for a step count, but the reason that I like to do this is because I still feel very, very guilty for not being active with our husky through first trimester. I love that dog like a child. That is my fur baby. He needs his exercise. I am his mommy. He is my responsibility. So I need to get my boy out on walks. Also, though, being a second-time mom, going through pregnancy while also working and having a toddler at home, plans don't always go according to plan. And what's nice about getting a good length walk in at first thing in the morning is that even if the rest of my day goes sideways, even if my morning routine goes sideways, I can feel good that I've at least done something to move my body. In addition to the walking, I do full body workouts, so strength training 3 times per week in the Anda app to support my fitness, my recovery on the days in between. I will aim to do Pilates and or mobility. One thing that's actually been new this pregnancy is I started doing reformer Pilates, which I had never been on a reformer before. I know it's very trendy. I was honestly a little bit nervous to go because it was new for me. And from everything I'd seen online, there's like a lot of different types of reformer classes. There's some that are more intense. There's Legree, which I don't know if there's beef between Legree and the other types of reformer Pilates. And some studios are very dark and the music is very loud. And I was worried about falling off the machine. But I started going to reformer Pilates, I want to say, partway through, or maybe definitely toward the end of first trimester. Maybe even once I was out of first trimester, because one of my mom friends was going. They had an early morning class. I wanted to spend more time with her. I got the intro pass. I tried it out. I really liked it. I stuck with it. So now I will typically do Pilates once or twice per week on those days in between full body training, because as much as it is resistance training, it's a completely different intensity. It's a completely different stimulus for your body. It has been so good for my entire low back and hip area. What are the health benefits of working out / weight training while pregnant? Well, lucky for you, we have got a systematic review. I just accidentally unplugged our mic, but we are back, hopefully. So in this systematic review, they looked at 50 studies featuring over 47,000 participants, and they found that resistance training was associated with a 58% decrease in gestational hypertension, a 38% decrease in gestational diabetes, a 52% decrease in perinatal mood disorders. So think of like depression during pregnancy. 33% decrease in macrosomia. I'll be honest, I don't know what that word means. Maybe I'll put a definition on screen. But here's the problem. Nearly all studies included used very low loads. So think 1 to 2 kilogram weights. For my Americans watching, I think that's like 2 to 5 pounds. Virtually no studies followed current strength training guidelines, and there was a lack of high load resistance training. We know that during pregnancy, the hormone relaxin increases, which can increase joint laxity, contributing to instability, which can increase your risk of injury. What is the best way to build stability? Strength training. We also know that when you are pregnant, over the course of pregnancy, you will be gaining weight, but that weight also isn't distributed uniformly. You are going to be gaining weight, of course, a bit all over your body by way of body fat, but you are going to be growing like this mass out the front side of your body. That is going to change your center of gravity. That is going to affect your posture. It can contribute toward muscle or postural imbalances. It can alter movement patterns. But what is one of the best ways to make sure that you are maintaining a balanced body to combat or reverse muscle imbalances? Yes, it is through strength training. Lifting weights. So I don't think it is a big stretch to say that not only is weightlifting good for avoiding some of those worst case scenario, things that we don't want during pregnancy, but it's also a great way to support your comfort through pregnancy, your ability to continue moving and continue enjoying, hopefully, your pregnancy experience. Main difference to last pregnancy. I'm not the main character. I get that this is not a specifically fitness question, but I do think it is relevant because beyond the symptoms and beyond the changes to my body, a big part of what has influenced my fitness journey through this second pregnancy is the fact that it's not just me. I am not my only responsibility. I have a toddler whose needs I have to anticipate and respond to and think about before my own. There is a lot less flexibility in my day-to-day routine. And so a lot of the standard pregnancy or self-care advice just doesn't feel relevant. It feels so out of touch. I know one thing that I even had trouble doing during my first pregnancy was when your apps or whatever you're reading would say, well, when you're tired, nap. At work, I now have a toddler. I have stuff to get done, right? And this isn't to say that you shouldn't prioritize self-care. I mean, absolutely, you have to take care of your body now, especially. But my perspective on it has changed. And I'm not saying this in a woe is me or whining kind of way. I mean, I'm the one who chose to have this family. I actually anticipate that my life will get more busy and more chaotic. And I do, in a very weird way, look forward to it. But it has forced me to change my mindset. I have had to become a lot more structured with my routines. I've had to do a lot of trial and error to find routines that are truly sustainable for me. You guys have probably seen my early mornings. And I've also had to accept that there are a lot of times and a lot of days that plans are going to change. I'm not going to want to do it. I'm not always going to be able to do what I want to do, where I'm just going to have to get things done and rely on discipline, even if it feels messy. How do you deal with the body changes? I'm actually not entirely sure how to answer that because I've had a kind of funny relationship with my body through this pregnancy. First trimester, I felt quite out of body and disconnected from my body. I wouldn't say that I had a great relationship with my body. I actually had a bit of resentment. Not that there was a lot that was changing physically, but I felt like garbage constantly. When I had the energy to be angry, I would say that I was angry in first trimester because I didn't have the energy to care for Bean, which made me feel guilty as a mother, guilty as a partner, angry at my body. But I also felt so sick that I was struggling to eat. And I don't just mean eat healthy, like eat anything. And so I wasn't weighing myself because that wasn't going to help anybody. But just kind of going off pictures, I do feel like I lost some weight in first trimester, which also made me feel guilty because here I am supposed to be nourishing my body and I can't even choke down any food. And I wish I could say I got relief once the nausea passed and once I was out of first trimester. But in that time between early pregnancy and when your bump definitely pops. For me, I feel like my bump was pretty loud and proud at 20 weeks when I went in for my anatomy scan. But in that time in between, it is such a weird phase of pregnancy, both physically and mentally, because it's before you're really feeling any strong or like that's absolutely a kick from your baby. And for me, at least, coming out of first trimester when I was barely eating, I started eating a bit more. My hunger was inconsistent. I was eating kind of inconsistently because I still didn't know what would sit fine for me. And so while I wasn't throwing up, like my lower digestive tract, like I was constipated, I was bloated, things were not moving regularly. And yeah, if I miss my morning poo. Like it's definitely, I'm not going to have a great day. To not feel sexy for 9 months is hard. Like, or 10 months, I guess pregnancy ends up being 10 months. Like, it's hard because as much as I might have looked hot in first trimester, they're not happening. And so then maybe this was me being entitled, but once I stopped feeling so nauseous, I thought, okay, like maybe I'll feel kind of hot again, right? Before I have a big belly. And I just didn't feel good. And I think what added to that as well is, as much as I didn't have a super defined and round belly early, my belly definitely popped sooner this pregnancy. And because my hunger was so inconsistent, I felt like I was just gorging myself and I was overeating and my hunger cues were all messed up. I was bloated, so I couldn't tell if I was full or if I had indigestion. And I felt like I was overeating and I was gaining weight really quickly. And it was a different feeling of out of control in my body as compared to that first trimester sickness. It was just a real roller coaster. And yes, looking back, I probably was feeling a bit entitled to, I had a very hard first trimester. I want to feel good again when I didn't feel good immediately. I can now say, being in third trimester and having a very out there defined baby bump, I am carrying this pregnancy differently. Like with Bean, I feel like she wrapped more around my body and there was maybe a bit more along my sides. Whereas this pregnancy, it's all out front. So that's even just been different to adapt to, right? Like as much as you can say, the way you look shouldn't be a huge priority during pregnancy. Like body image you're lying to yourself, you're lying to everybody if you say that you should always feel positive about your body and that body image shouldn't affect, how you're going about your day, your confidence as a person. I don't think it needs to be up here on the list of priorities, but at the same time, it does factor in, right? So as a positive, I do feel at 7 months pregnant that I am now at the stage where I am back to feeling confident and good in my body. I feel pretty, I feel sexy. I feel like my bump is round and defined now. It's not kind of lumpy or bloated. It's just like an added curve to my body. And I really like it. And I wish that when I was pregnant, I could just fast track to this. I could keep this for 9-10 months and then whoosh, snatch it back in, and then you get pregnant again and you get the big beach ball belly, and then just go between that. That'd be super crazy. But if I could do it my way, that's what I'd want. What's the best thing you can do / prepare for fitness wise pre-pregnancy? So I had a whole answer planned for this, and it was kind of a different direction, but then I reread your question and I noticed that you said pre-pregnancy, before you are pregnant. So beyond, the standard advice of tracking your cycle, learning about fertility, doing everything you can to optimize your routine so that hopefully when you decide that you're ready to get pregnant, it is a straightforward journey. All of the fertility talk aside, from a purely fitness standpoint, what I would say is try to get as fit as possible. I'm talking build strength. Don't just build, your max lifts, how much weight you can lift, but truly build full body, balanced and functional strength. Make sure that you learn proper breathing technique. You know how to engage your pelvic floor correctly. I think one of the muscle imbalances that a lot of people sleep on, because most people just think, like a muscle imbalance is between your dominant side and your non-dominant side. But even within your pelvic floor and core, a lot of people will train their more surface level core muscles, like their rectus abdominis six-pack muscles, without ever learning the proper breathing technique to engage those deeper core and pelvic floor muscles. So take the time before you're pregnant to learn that proper breathing technique, really learn and become aware of your pelvic floor, your core, and how that integrates with the rest of your body. Not that you can't work on those things during pregnancy, but hey, if you're planning ahead, great time to do it. Work on your strength, build your endurance, get as fit as you can, because if you had a first trimester like I did, you are probably going to lose it. But guess what? It is so much easier to rebuild fitness than it is to start from nothing, right? To have that foundation, even if you lose the fitness, at least mentally, you know, okay, I can get back there. I know what it takes to get there. And physically, there is very real detraining adaptations that occur with strength. It takes a lot longer than you would think to actually lose muscle and strength. With endurance, it happens a little bit quicker, but you can also often regain it quicker. Second part of the answer might be a little controversial, but you asked what I would do. If you have weight to lose, if there is weight, I'll rephrase that. If there is weight that you would like to lose, that you would feel better in your body if you did lose, and I'm not talking about if you're already a lean individual, like losing the last 5 pounds or getting bodybuilding competition lean, but if maybe over the pandemic, you gained a few extra pounds, if maybe life has happened and you're just a little heavier than you'd like to be, and you're trying to be proactive going into this pregnancy, I would say now is the time to navigate that weight loss journey. I went through my weight loss journey several years before getting pregnant with Bean, and that was not intentional. I knew I'd probably have kids someday, but I very much so did that for me because that's like, there's so many videos I could link below for you guys, but I did that for me. And I'm grateful that I did it in advance of becoming pregnant, because not only did that put me, I think, in a better position to navigate some of those body image related things, but I also got very clear on the habits and the mindset and the things I would need to do to maintain that body without relying on willpower alone, because pregnancy is tiring. Early motherhood and postpartum is exhausting. And if you have those added things of like really struggling with body image, because maybe you started pregnancy a little heavier than you wanted to be, and then you gained the pregnancy weight, and then once you lose the belly, you're all squishy and your body looks so different. And it's like all of these changes compounded on already not a great foundation. I think that makes it harder. If you were pregnant and trying to get in shape, which program would you use? Well, I would join the Anda app. Obviously, there's a 7-day free trial. You have nothing to lose. LOL. But seriously, in case it's not clear by now, I would do a combination of strength and endurance training. I would start with a foundation of 3 full body workouts per week. You do not have to go to a gym. You do not have to do anything crazy. 30 minutes with a couple sets of dumbbells will do the trick. Focus on compound movements. Knowing that first trimester might be a bit of a toss up. You might be feeling good. You might not. If you're feeling good, I'd say stick with whatever workouts you were doing coming into pregnancy. If you're not feeling good, do your best. Genuinely, every movement counts. Come second trimester, hopefully you're feeling better. My approach here, or like my mindset here, shifts to this is when you're going to start to really feel the pregnancy. Like, I'm not just talking about the nausea, but this is when your bump is probably starting to become more noticeable. You might be feeling the pull of your center of gravity moving a bit more forward. You might be feeling a little bit more heavy down through your pelvic floor, more of that instability that comes from your hormones changing. So this is really the time to make sure that you are being diligent with your strength training so that you are supporting your stability. You have got the pelvic strength that you need to support that growing belly. If you have the time and energy to do a bit of mobility, even a few minutes on the front or back end of your training, that can also go a long way for keeping you comfortable and helping to prevent against some of the aches and pains that can come up with your changing body. And then third trimester, if you have followed kind of what I outlined through first and second, that is when my focus really shifts to labor prep. So continuing with the strength training, making sure you're doing some sort of cardio or endurance training, even if it's just, going walking. But third trimester is where my mindset shifts to labor prep. Everyone has different expectations of labor and delivery. I know that we all want a healthy baby, which is ultimately what matters. What I am preparing for with this pregnancy, what I did with my pregnancy with Bean, was an unmedicated home delivery. And so I know now from experience that one of the best things you can do is build your mental and physical endurance. So that is why I did a couple runs this week. I probably should have only done one, but I am gonna work to bring in a bit more cardio, not because I think I'm gonna be setting any sort of PRs with my running, but because I want to remind myself of what it takes and what it feels like to dig deep, and remind myself that even when my effort goes up, I can sustain that effort and I can find the will, the energy, the motivation. I can access those parts of my mind that I know I will need during the intensity of labor. Of course, still keeping up with my strength, keeping up with my mobility, but I am going to try to add maybe a couple runs into my weekly routine. That's something I'm going to focus on over the next few weeks. I'd say mobility also becomes more important in the third trimester because common-ish belief, something that I even believe that's a misconception going into my first pregnancy, is that if you are a very strong and athletic woman, if you have a really strong pelvic floor, that's going to help you push out the baby and have a faster delivery, which is actually not true. And this really blew my mind because your muscles that you can control, they do not push out the baby. Your muscles actually have to relax and essentially get out of the way so that the fetal ejection reflex, your uterus can squeeze it, can get the baby out, which you can't control. It's involuntary. I know when I made that mindset shift from, oh my gosh, I'm consciously pushing, to no, I need to learn how to breathe and lengthen my pelvic floor and access, different hip rotations that we can help improve baby's positioning. That was it's like a mind-blowing realization for me. So rambling, third trimester, stick with your strength training, add in some mobility, absolutely your breath work, practice the lengthening and the relaxing of your pelvic floor. If you can, see a pelvic PT. I think a lot of pelvic PTs now offer a push prep course. I did one with my first pregnancy and it was so helpful and reassuring just to know, to confirm that when I thought I was tensing my pelvic floor, I was. When I thought I was relaxing it, I was. To make sure I was able to do that through a full range of motion. My breathing was correct. We even went over some breathing techniques you can use during labor. I'm going to cut us off there because I really do love talking about pregnancy, and I love talking about labor and birth and the research that is continuing to emerge on all of this. I'm even thinking back on some of the questions and I feel like there's so much more I could have said, but this video is getting long. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you enjoyed our little chat. I love our little chats. If you did, definitely let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you are pregnant, how far along you are. I can't believe that we're going into, as of when this goes live, we're probably officially in the third trimester, which I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, not in a nervous way, but it is very hard mentally to, as much as you're pregnant, to think that one day there's just going to be another person in your house, another person who's going to eventually be an adult like you. Kind of crazy. Okay, kind of crazy. That's it. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.